They told me the apartment was empty. But every night, I feel the warmth of someone beside me. Breathing. Touching. Loving me, like he never left. Only problem? He's not alive. Then fade in. This is how it started. Chapter 1. The apartment with quiet walls. I had just turned 27 when I signed the lease on the apartment. A third-floor walk-up, tucked away at the end of a silent corridor in a near-forgotten part of the city. The building was old but charming, faded red brick covered in creeping ivy, the hallways echoing faint whispers of a time when laughter and jazz music might have filled the air. Rent was cheap, the view overlooked a cemetery on one side and a row of dying trees on the other. Not exactly glamorous, but it felt right. Quiet. Solitary. That's all I wanted. I moved in during the last week of October. The wind was colder than usual, brushing through my sweater like phantom fingers. Still, I found it beautiful. Peaceful. The first few nights, it was just me and the silence. Unpacking boxes. Drinking wine on the floor. Watching shadows stretch long across the wall as the sun dipped behind the skyline. I thought I finally had my own little world. A sanctuary. But then came the fourth night. I had just drifted to sleep. It was close to 3 a.m., I remember, because the red digits on my alarm clock glowed sharp against the darkness. I was curled under the covers, half asleep, the sound of distant traffic humming like a lullaby. Then, I felt it. The softest pull of the mattress beside me. As if someone had lain down gently. Like a body easing into the sheets. No sound, no footsteps. Just pressure. I told myself it was nothing. A trick of the springs. Settling wood. My overworked mind. I didn't even open my eyes. But I couldn't deny the sudden warmth on my side. Not from the blanket. Not from the heater, I hadn't turned it on yet. It felt like a human. A presence. Something close. Real. I told myself I imagined it. Until it happened again the next night. And the next. By the seventh night, I wasn't sleeping. I was pretending. Lying still, eyes closed, breathing slow, waiting. And like clockwork, between 2:50 and 3:10 a.m., the bed would shift. It wasn't dramatic, no aggressive thump, no heavy dragging. Just that same quiet pressure, like someone familiar, someone gentle, slipping beneath the blanket beside me. Then came the breathing. It was faint at first. Barely there. The kind of sound you'd miss unless you were listening for it. But I was. I was holding my breath, ears straining. In. Out. Rhythmic. Calm. Deep. I was never brave enough to move then. Never looked. I convinced myself it would vanish if I did. That I'd break whatever thin thread held the illusion together. Still. I wasn't afraid. That was the strangest part. Whoever, or whatever, it was, didn't feel threatening. It felt sad. Like the loneliness I carried had called to something else. Something older. Something broken. On the 10th night, I reached out. I didn't know why. I just did. My fingers trembled as I moved them across the sheets, heart pounding like thunder under my ribs. I expected nothing. Maybe cold air. Maybe empty space. But then, warmth. Skin. A chest. A neck. Breath against my wrist. I gasped. My eyes flew open. No one. There was no one there. And yet, my hand still hovered over warmth. Like my body remembered what my eyes couldn't see. I pulled away quickly, sitting up, heart racing. The warmth faded slowly, like steam rising off the pavement after rain. That was the first night I cried. Not because I was scared. Because I felt insane. The next day, I called the landlord. He was old. Gruff. Lived on the first floor with a dozen cats and the smell of cigarettes. When I asked if anyone had died in the apartment, he chuckled like I'd told a joke. "Sweetheart," he said, scratching at his beard, "this building's been around since the 40s. People died on every damn floor. What's it matter now?" I hung up with more questions than answers. But that night, I lit a candle by my bed. Not for light. For him. Whoever he was. I whispered, "I don't know who you are, but I think you're real." There was no reply. Only stillness. But somehow, that stillness held weight. The dreams began after that. Soft at first. Fleeting. Flashes of someone standing at the foot of my bed. A silhouette tall and still, hands tucked in pockets, eyes glowing faint in the dark. He never spoke. Never moved. But he was always there. Watching. I woke up with tears dried on my cheeks. Not from fear. From something I couldn't explain. Grief, maybe. Or recognition. I stopped inviting friends over. I stopped taking calls. Every night became sacred. A ritual. Dinner alone. Tea. Bath. Candlelight. And then, waiting. By the third week, I began speaking to him. Reading aloud from old books. Playing slow music. Telling him about my day. It felt stupid at first. But he listened. I could feel it. The bed would shift when I smiled. Warmth would press against my back when I cried. His presence became a comfort. A strange, invisible lullaby. One night, I felt his hand brush my hair. Fingers ghosting down my spine. I closed my eyes, tears slipping down my cheeks, and whispered, "Who are you?" There was a long silence. Then, barely audible, like a breath caught between worlds, I heard it. A name. Eli. Just one word. Soft. Familiar. Eli. My heart stuttered. That night, I dreamed of a man standing on a balcony, rain soaking his shoulders as he looked down onto the street below. A cigarette burned in his fingers. His eyes were full of sorrow. When I woke up, the window was open and my pillow smelled faintly of smoke. I spent the entire next day searching for records. Online databases. Obituaries. Old newspaper archives. I searched for Eli, and the address. I searched the name of the building. Hours passed. My tea went cold. Then I found it. A photo in a 2007 local paper. A young man, dark hair, eyes like ash, found dead in apartment 3C. My apartment. They said he fell. Or jumped. It was never clear. Only that he lived alone. And was deeply loved. My hands trembled as I traced the image on the screen. His face matched the man in my dreams. Exactly. That night, I whispered his name. Eli. The room felt warmer. My breath caught in my throat. I could feel him, closer. Like his name had called him back stronger than before. The sheets curled around my leg. A hand, real and warm, pressed against my hip. He held me all night. I slept with tears on my cheeks and peace in my chest. Because I knew now. He wasn't just some haunting. He wasn't just a presence. He was Eli. And somehow, he had never left. But the thing about ghosts? They're only ever echoes of pain. Of love too strong to let go. And I had just opened a door. That maybe should have stayed closed. Because sometimes, when the past reaches back, it doesn't come to say goodbye. It comes to keep you. Chapter 2, Whispers in the Dark. It started with a whisper, soft, distant, not even a sound but a feeling. Like something brushing the edge of a dream, too quiet to hear but too present to ignore. I had just begun to drift off, my head sinking into the pillow, the candle beside my window burning low. That whisper didn't come from outside. It came from within. It threaded into my thoughts, slow and sorrowful, like a memory trying to breathe. "Don't be afraid." That's what it said. I sat up sharply, clutching the blanket around my chest. The air in the room was still, dense with silence, yet something felt different. It was no longer just the familiar hush of night. There was weight in the air, a kind of presence you feel before you see, the kind that creeps across your skin and sinks into your bones. I didn't see him, but I knew. Eli was here. Not in a vague, emotional way. I felt him. The way the mattress dipped gently near my hip. The way my skin suddenly warmed on one side. But still, there was no body. No shape. Just warmth. Familiar and constant. I whispered his name in the dark. Eli. My voice cracked, fragile like it didn't belong in the space between me and whatever surrounded me. No answer came. Only silence. But it wasn't empty. It was filled with him. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there, frozen under the blanket, heart pounding, my hand half hovering in the air, unsure if I wanted to reach for something I couldn't see. Eventually, exhaustion took me, and I drifted into the kind of half-sleep that felt more like waiting than dreaming. The next morning, I woke up with my hand stretched toward the empty side of the bed. The sheets were warm. My skin tingled. I wasn't dreaming. It was real. Somehow, in some impossible way, he was real. That night, I set a recorder beside the bed, the kind of cheap device used by journalists and ghost hunters. I didn't know what I was hoping to catch. Maybe silence. Maybe my own voice talking to nothing. But I had to know. I needed proof, not for others, but for myself. Proof that I wasn't spiraling into madness. Before I slept, I whispered again. If you're here, talk to me. Please. Then I blew out the candle and curled into the sheets. I wasn't sure what I expected, another whisper, a shift in air, that subtle warmth pressing against me. But this time I fell into sleep quickly. As if something pulled me down faster than usual. The dream came, vivid and strange. I was in the apartment, but it was not how I remembered it. The walls were golden with light, the furniture new, the windows spotless. There was music in the background, an old jazz tune playing softly on a record. I walked toward the window, drawn by something I couldn't explain. And that's when I saw him. Eli. He was standing with his back to me, looking out into the city as rain slid down the glass. He turned slowly when he sensed me. And his eyes, gray and quiet, locked onto mine. There was so much pain in them. So much longing. I wanted to speak, but I couldn't. My voice didn't work. Instead, he took a step toward me and lifted his hand to my cheek. I should have felt cold, but I didn't. His touch was warm. Real. Like sunlight through a window. When he spoke, it was a whisper inside my chest. You hear me now. And just like that, I started to cry. He pulled me into his arms, holding me like someone who had waited years for this single moment. His lips found mine and kissed me like I was something sacred. It wasn't lust. It wasn't fear. It was the kind of kiss you give someone when you know you don't have forever. When time is running out. I wanted to stay in that moment. I wanted to stay asleep, just to hold on to him. But I woke up. And I was alone again. Except. I wasn't. The recorder was still on. I played it back the moment I sat up, hands shaking, heart pounding. For over an hour, there was nothing. Just silence. Then, at exactly 3:03 a.m., a voice. Stay with me. Soft. Distant. A whisper not meant for ears but for the heart. I played it again. And again. Every time, the same phrase. Stay with me. It was him. I knew it the way you know your own name. From that night on, I didn't leave the apartment. I stopped answering texts. Stopped replying to emails. Work faded into the background like a life I no longer belonged to. My world had narrowed down to these walls, to this room, to the presence that shared my bed at night. Every evening became a ritual. I lit candles and spoke aloud. Reading from poetry books, playing soft music, talking about my day. And in return, Eli came. Not visibly, not fully, but his warmth wrapped around me. The mattress would dip. My hair would be brushed gently off my face. He would whisper things in dreams, things I couldn't always remember but that left me waking up with tears on my cheeks and my body aching for more. It wasn't just haunting. It was love. Unreal. Impossible. Terrifying. But love. The dreams became more vivid. In one, we walked together through a version of the city that no longer existed, old buildings, glowing street lamps, rain puddles reflecting light. He never rushed. He never let go of my hand. In another, he danced with me in the middle of the living room, barefoot and laughing, his arms around my waist, a look in his eyes that made me feel like the only soul left in the world. But then, something changed. One night, I felt nothing. No weight in the bed. No warmth. No whispers. Just cold. The kind of cold that seeps into the bones. I whispered his name. Over and over. Eli. Eli, please. Nothing. The candle beside my bed flickered violently and then went out. The next morning, the mirror in my bedroom had a crack running straight down the middle. Like it had been split by something from the inside. I tried everything to bring him back. Played the recordings. Relit all the candles. Spoke his name aloud. Cried. Begged. But the apartment remained hollow. That night, just as I was about to drift into sleep, the voice returned, so faint it felt like it was clawing through layers of distance. I'm still here. But they don't want me to be. I dreamed again. But this time it was different. The apartment was gone. I was walking down a long hallway, gray and endless. The walls pulsed with something alive. At the far end, I saw him, Eli, behind a wall of glass, palms pressed flat against it, his face full of anguish. I ran to him, screaming his name, but I couldn't reach him. He shouted, "You have to find me. My name. My full name. You have to remember me, before they erase me." I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. It wasn't just grief now. It was urgency. A warning. That day, I searched for answers. I tore through the apartment like a madwoman, ripping open drawers, pulling up floorboards, going through every inch. And then, behind a loose board in the closet, I found it. A letter. Old and yellowed with time, barely readable. Addressed to someone named Eleanor. If I don't make it back, know that I loved you. More than anything. I couldn't take the silence anymore. The pain. I'm sorry. Elijah Ward. His full name. Elijah Ward. My lips trembled as I whispered it aloud. Elijah Ward. The lights in the apartment flickered once. Then twice. Then the warmth returned. Stronger than ever. Like I had pulled him back from somewhere deep. And in that moment, I knew, his death was not an accident. And someone didn't want him to be remembered. But I had remembered him. I had found him. And now, I couldn't let him go. Chapter 3, The Forgotten Death. The name stayed on my tongue all day, like something sacred. Elijah Ward. Saying it felt like casting a spell. Every time the syllables passed through my lips, something in the apartment responded, a flicker of light, a shift in air, a faint warmth brushing my skin. He was closer now. I could feel it. Not just beside me in bed, but here. Awake. Watching. But even as that presence grew stronger, so did the weight of what I'd discovered. His letter, tucked behind the closet wall like a secret never meant to be found, wasn't just a love note, it was a goodbye. A final whisper from a man who had chosen to vanish from the world. Or, who had been forced to. The handwriting was beautiful, messy, rushed, but soaked in emotion. There was pain between the lines. Loneliness. Fear. I read the letter a dozen times, trying to trace every word like a map that might lead me to the truth. But all I had was a name and a ghost who couldn't speak beyond the veil of sleep. That night, I didn't wait for the dream to come. I searched Elijah's name online with a desperation that burned. Every search result, every article, every document. It wasn't easy. Elijah Ward was a common enough name. But death records, old blogs, archived news clippings, they began to form a trail. And then I found it. Local musician found dead in apartment bedroom. The article was from 2007. The headline was vague, the details murky. They said it was suicide. A young man, early 30s, beloved in the local music scene. He hadn't released much, just small performances in bars, a few private recordings, but he had a quiet following. The article said he had struggled with personal demons, whatever that meant. No family listed. Just a line that stuck with me. Elijah Ward was known for disappearing into the music, and in the end, perhaps that's where he remained. I clicked on a photo attached to the article. It hit me like a thunderclap. There he was. Standing under a neon sign outside a bar, guitar case in hand, half smiling at the camera like he wasn't ready for it. His eyes. His lips. His hair tousled from the rain. It was him. The man from my dreams. The man who held me in sleep. The man who whispered my name through the silence. I stared at the image, fingers trembling. He had been real. Fully, truly real. Not a dream. Not a creation of my lonely mind. A man who had lived and loved and lost. A man who had died in this apartment. And suddenly, I couldn't breathe. Because if he was real, then what I was feeling, every night, wasn't a haunting. It was unfinished love. I went to the bar mentioned in the article. I needed more than internet whispers, I needed people, stories, traces. The place was barely standing. The windows were boarded. A rusted, closed for renovations sign hung crooked above the door. But the convenience store across the street was still open. An old woman behind the counter watched me curiously as I bought a bottle of water I didn't need.